in football, the draft is when hope starts all over again.
You guys ready to get started?
Hope, the deep and passionate kind. Hope that the next pick will make this season the season. Hope that the next name called will be yours.
And welcome everybody to AATB Draft Talk. Tommy's here as always, myself, Johnny, and we are joined by Chris Malee from 4th and John. Appreciate you joining us. We're going to talk all-star games. We're going to talk a lot of draft tonight. So really appreciate you joining Tommy and I.
Absolutely. Appreciate it. Big fan of the show. Glad I can stop in and talk about the draft and the Eagles' new hires, man.
Yeah, and I want to start off with the All-Star games. Last weekend, we had the Spiral Tropical Bowl. A lot of lower-level prospects in that bowl, but, Tommy and I emphasized how important these All-Star games are for the scouts, because as we've seen, each room is littered with basically every single team and the amount of scouts in it, just because there's no East-West Shrine Bowl, the actual bowl itself, and there's no the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl. That's also not active as well. So these bowls are so huge. And what's up, Kyle? Thanks for joining us. But my thing is with that, like there was a couple of prospects that we highlighted last week. And I know the one guy that Tommy liked was, he picked every single guy I wanted to do. We talked back and forth and we're like, well, give me a couple guys you want to do. And then, so I asked him for his 3 and he picked every single one of mine. But Tommy, if you want to go in a little bit on any of the guys, I know there's a couple MVPs and stuff. And then if you want to chime in, Chris, on anything that you happen to notice with any of the players, go for it.
One guy we touched on a little bit last week was Greg McCray out of UCF. 99 total yards with a kickoff return touchdown in the first quarter, 65 yards rushing, 185 total yards altogether. He had a pretty big game.
And
sorry, guys.
No, go ahead, Chris.
I was gonna say the Tropical Bowl. It's one of the few opportunities that the scouts and coaches in general are going to be able to see these guys on the field. I mean, some of these guys had limited game time due to COVID. They had shortened schedules. It's really hard to gauge competition because some teams had guys sitting out. So it's an all-star game. I mean, it's not the best of the best, but it's the best of what's out there. And we got to see these guys compete. There's key players, MVPs on both sides, and it's just really good to see these guys out in the field because we're not going to get a combine. And luckily this week we're actually going to have the Reese Senior Bowl coming up.
Yeah, and it's huge with these guys, like you said, the opting out and not as many games, and even some of these guys who played, they played 5, 6, 7 games. They didn't play a full slate. that they would usually play to get that film. And it helps to be able to go. I know that some of these bowls aren't super high profile, but you're going up against guys who are going to be in the draft, whether they're not at the highest schools, but you're still going against them, showing your skills for the scouts. The scouts aren't looking necessarily at what you do up against this one guy. They're looking at your skill set. They're looking at how you translate it on the field, how you look in your breaks. All that stuff is so crucial for these guys. And I like to see it, even like a guy like Myron Mitchell, that I kept seeing how he was just looking so well, the speed, the burst that he had. And it's great to see that, because I like that every single year, to see these lower level guys shoot up a little bit. Yeah, they may not be first, second, third rounders, but late in the draft, guys that can show something. And a player like the Eagles, I know he didn't play to his potential, but John Hightower last year was a guy that, impressed a lot of guys because of his speed and what he could do and how deep that wide receiver class was. He dropped a little bit and he got to the Eagles, and yeah, he struggled, but the whole Eagles team struggled. So you can't really put that to him. But how's your feeling on, these lower level bulls, to see these lower level prospects kind of boost themselves?
I think a big thing is that they're also able to showcase themselves in a different scheme. So, for example, we saw Shamar Jean-Charles. He earned an honorable mention for defensive MVP. He typically is more of an outside corner in Appalachian State's scheme, but this week he was used more in the nickel role, and he kind of excelled there. Is able to showcase that he can kind of do both, no matter where you need him on defense.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the few opportunities, just to highlight again, that we get to see these guys out there and being competitive. I mean, there's no combine. And even though the combine, it's not really like a lot of one-on-one drills or anything like that, but like that's why these bowls, like some of these bowls, like they were kind of written off, like people didn't really pay attention to them before. Like this is it though. Like this is where you're going to find these guys that end up even being your day one starters. Like you're going to find guys like Philip Lindsay and like all these other lower names that like may not have made the combine, might not have made the East West Shrine Bowl, but they're guys that are going to have a chip on their shoulder, and they're going to show up in OTAs and then show up again in August, and they're going to beat out guys that are getting paid a lot more than them, but they care a lot more because they understand the gravity of the situation. Like they didn't have the high draft pick. They weren't getting shit on ESPN. They were sitting in their room and got a call from their agent and said, "Hey, you want undrafted, but it's time to work." And a lot of these guys are going to find a home because of the work that they put in last week at things like the Tropical Bowl.
Yeah, and you have like the biggest thing with this new rule with the seniors being able to go back, and you're going to have players drafted who usually would be undrafted guys. They're going to get the opportunity to draft because the pool isn't going to be as deep. Now you're still going to have talented players. That's still going to be there. But this is where the scouting comes into effect so much, because you're not going to have as much film. You're not going to have as much, the combine, the measurable, you're going to have some of it, but it's not going to be as, in depth as it would be for, usual years, which, for our team, Chris, with the Eagles, it's going to put a lot of emphasis on being able to, draft the right guys, the right fits, and, being able to use your scouts and be able to, get those guys. And I know you and I talk, when it comes to draft time, certain players we like. I know you're all over Twitter with the breakdowns and everything like that. And, we always have our set of guys who we absolutely love, and guys that we'd love to see in Midnight Green, but we know it doesn't always work that way. But how's your feeling on this whole pool and not having as many like players, because some of these seniors are going back for an extra year because they're granted the extra year?
This is what I had to say. Before COVID, I thought this is probably, if not a better draft class for a team like the Eagles than last year's. Like, and even after COVID, I feel the same way. I mean, the linebackers are deep, the wide receivers are deep, the linemen are deep, and I think we're pretty set at quarterback. I really think that the new hire with Coach Sirianni, I feel like it's exactly what we needed, whether it's going to be Jalen Hurts, whether it's going to be Carson Wentz. I'm just excited that we're adding a guy that actually has a track record of developing players, guys like Keenan Allen. I mean, I think that the pool is perfect for us. I mean, there's arguably like 7 linebackers that are going to that could make a huge impact for us. And they're going to be trickling all the way back to like probably the middle of the third round. Wide receivers all over the place. I know Chris Olave's decided to go back to Ohio State. I really liked him in the second round, but you still have guys like Terrace Marshall, Kadarius Toney that you can get later. Obviously, you want the top dogs of Jamar Chase and Devontae Smith. That being said, like, it's a really healthy draft class. I understand that there's guys that opted out, like Jamar Chase and Micah Parsons, that it really would have been nice to see them at the combine and just get your eyes on them, because you don't know how someone's body is going to react after taking a year off from football. That being said, Johnny, like, it's a healthy pool. I'm not really worried about the whole situation. And everyone's in the same is dealing with the same circumstances. Everyone's gonna have to really dig deep at these bowls that we're highlighting. The Reese Senior Bowl is going to be crucial. I mean, it's one of the last like hands-on opportunities for coaches and scouts. Yeah. That's why it's a shame that the Eagles couldn't go, because we knew that Doug wasn't going to be here. Like, the Eagles were selected to coach there, and then we had to pass it up. And then now Brian Flores is going to be down there, and it almost really does lock up Devontae Smith going third overall, because Miami's picking there, and Smith, who no one expected him to go to the Senior Bowl. I mean, we were talking to Jim Nagy, and we were like, dude, like, that's a huge getting Smith. And he's like, he can't play because he got injured in the national championship game. He's literally going there just to be on Flores' team and be like, yo, like, I know that I can't play, but like, you're like, I should probably get that third pick money, and I'm gonna be on your team in with Tua. So
yeah,
it's really exciting. Yep.
But you bring up those All-Star games, and there's another one coming up this weekend. The College Gridiron Showcase, which there are some pretty good names that are there just because of what we've detailed before, with not having few games dropping out, not being able to play. There's some good players, and I'll give it to you, Tommy. There are a couple names that you're looking at. Rise up the board, and anybody you're really liking.
I think there's a lot of lower level guys kind of in this Gridiron Showcase. One guy I wanted to highlight, though, Zach Davidson out of Central Missouri, 6'7", 245. Didn't get a chance to play this year because it's an FCS school, but he was an All-American last year. Good late round tight end, very athletic, gifted as a receiver, good after the catch. He can kind of use a little bit of work as a blocker, but finished top 10 in receiving touchdowns last year with 15. Top 10 in yards per reception too with 22.35, and altogether 40 catches, 894 yards, 15 touchdowns. So I think he's a guy to kind of look at as a developmental tight end in the later rounds who can kind of surprise some people.
Yeah, and I know I mentioned a name to you the other day. I don't know if it was yesterday. Greg Island from Mississippi State. 6'7", 330 plus offensive tackle. The one thing I saw that was like really eye-opening was, he's not a top prospect, he's a lower level guy and everything, but he has 37-inch arms, which is huge for an offensive tackle. Usually you want to see him around the 34 range. Sometimes if they're 33, okay, we'll see. But 37-inch arms, he's a guy that's going to be a, developmental player, but with that size, it's just very intriguing, especially being able to see him in these practices and being able to see him in person should help with the scouts. And that's one name that I'm pretty intrigued about. A lower level guy. Anybody on the list? There's a couple other guys that I have, but I'll let you go, Chris. If is there anybody that you're taking a liking to look at?
I mean, it's a really good group. I mean, these guys are coming from solid schools. It's not like they're from like bottom of the barrel schools. One thing I want to highlight more than anything was this bowl. Only started in 2015, and they've sent over 500 plus guys into the pros for opportunities. So like, I know that we really highlight the combine, the East Shrine Bowl, Senior Bowl, but like the Gridiron Showcase, like it does really well. It's in Fort Worth, Texas, and guys travel down there. And like we said, like in the last 5 years, like 500 plus pro opportunities from this event. So it's awesome. I mean, you get to see guys from different positions, different schools, and it's just another great opportunity.
Yeah, and there's I was looking at the list, and there's some pretty good names of like players that I liked watching in the college, and TJ Vasher from Texas Tech, he's the size 6'5", but he's only like 180 something pounds, but players like that, like D'Angelo Amos, who Tommy and I had on, Antoine Davis, who we had on, those guys we want to see just because, talking to them and, we're rooting for them. So it's just that always gives us a little bit of an edge of, hoping for the best for them, especially during the practice week, being able to show the scouts. Another player I saw that Antoine Davis, who played at Bald State, one of the toughest corners he went up against was Antonio Phillips. I know he mentioned as one of the, because that was his teammate, going up against him in practice every day, 6 foot, 192 corner. So like players like that, I really want to watch on these stages too. Jason Pinnock from Pitt. I like him, a feisty player. Another name that really jumped out, a lot of people are talking about, and is a smaller school guy, Mike Boykin from North Alabama. A bigger, more of a 3-4 prototypical type of player, but he's a guy I really want to watch up against because the offensive line in this, has a lot of prospects from bigger schools. So I absolutely love to see, these smaller level guys go up against these guys who played at ACC, SEC, Big Ten schools to see what they can do. But those are a few players that I'm looking for. And last guy is a guy from Wisconsin, Eric Burrell, kind of a safety who's just like a hard-nosed type of player that seemed like watching a Wisconsin game, his name was mentioned multiple times, his a nose for the football, basically. But those are some players that I'm looking forward to seeing come this weekend during that game. We have a question here. I did want to bring this. Actually was a question that I was going to bring up to you, Chris, but any chance of Penei Sewell falls to 6? He's the run on quarterbacks. Would you take him there? If Sewell is there and the Eagles are at number 6, do you take him?
Man, I've answered this question probably like 40 times already, and this is since like October. People have been asking me about this, and it's really been because like our line looked horrendous. But the big thing that you have to keep in mind, well, that was kind of before the emergence of Mailata. It's a really loaded question. I personally think there's 0% chance that he falls to 6. I don't think that people like realize like a left tackle is such a premier pick in any draft, let alone like Sewell is being regarded as like one of the top left tackle prospects in the last like 10 plus years. That being said, like there's so many scenarios that you jump through. Like I think Lawrence is 100% going 1, and I think another quarterback is going to go in the top 5. So that's 2 spots. I think that either Miami or Cincinnati is going to take Sewell. There's a lot of noise, even though people don't understand why. But Slater from why am I forgetting where he's from? Yeah, Northwestern. He's been getting like an insane amount of buzz. I mean, Daniel Jeremiah said, not me, but like people, NFL teams are saying he might go in front of Sewell. I'm like, that would be crazy because I'm assuming Sewell would do really well unless he just like bombs interviews or comes in like really like overweight or something or out of shape from taking the season off. But like I think Sewell is absolutely gonna go before we pick. And that would be crazy. I mean, I don't know if I'd take him. I have a lot of faith in Mailata. I do still believe in Dillard. That being said, I have suggested that maybe I think Kelsey's going to retire. I would suggest maybe kicking Sam Alu down to center and then Dillard at left guard, which is like I understand like you're paying him to be like a first round left tackle. It doesn't matter. I mean, the Saints had no problems moving Andrews Pete to left guard, and that did wonders for them. Like you got to put these guys in a position to succeed. Like it is annoying though because I personally didn't want Andre Dillard, and then I actually spoke to Mike Kay during the draft, and he told me that the Eagles didn't even scout him, and that was probably the most alarming thing that I heard because we traded up for him too, and like I don't know. I mean, I'm hoping that Dorsey has a lot more say than Howie does this year, or like they at least listen to him because I mean, look at the Browns versus Chiefs. It was literally Dorsey drafted team versus Dorsey drafted team. I mean, if you really look at it, and even he helped draft scout Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. So I don't think Sewell's going to, so to answer the question, I'm sorry, tangent. I don't think he's going to fall to 6, and I don't know if I'd take him because I probably wouldn't pass up on Chase, or I would try to get a value of moving back if the box is loaded right there. Like if you're at 6 and let's say Sertain, Chase, possibly Sewell, probably not, Farley, and all these guys that are there, you might want to move back because the Eagles have a lot of holes.
Yeah, and that's one thing. And I know with Sewell, I like when we did like our mocks, like Tommy and I passed Cincinnati, and I give Cincinnati a receiver and not Sewell. He's like, well, Joe Burrow needs protection. They did draft Jonah Williams, but he's not. He's more of a guard. I feel, in my opinion, the way he fits, his size, everything, and how he moves, he's better fitted at guard or possibly right tackle. But you get Sewell at left tackle. You try to get your bookends and then help your quarterback. My thing with Sewell, you have Mailata, you have Dillard, Sayamalu, Brandon Brooks coming back, Lane Johnson, you have Driscoll, Herbig played well. I understand you want to get depth, but it doesn't mean that they're not going to draft a offensive lineman later in the draft, which I could absolutely see them doing. Plus, if you're at number 6, 2 quarterbacks went ahead, and you have a team like Carolina or a team like Denver or a team like San Francisco that absolutely loves one of the quarterbacks that are left and wants to trade up with you and wants to give you, value and even overvalue to get up to that spot, knowing you'll trade back, knowing there's going to be the amount of players that are going to be available for you and the holes like you mentioned, to me, it's a no-brainer because even if it's Sewell that's there and a team that wants a left tackle, wants to trade up to you and wants to give whatever it is, you have to think about doing that because you need, and Jeffrey Lurie said it, talked about the draft and talked about getting picks and having a lot of picks and having a lot of shots at the draft. He doesn't say that without thinking, we need as many draft picks as possible. I've mentioned time and time again that, you look at the 2018, 2019 drafts, a total of 10 picks. That's tough to hit on the amount of picks that you need to hit on when you have 9, 10, 11 picks. It's a lot easier to hit on 2 or 3 of those, 3 or 4 of those guys when you have 10 or 11 than when you have 5. So you need these younger players. You need to stack your roster with this youth and this youthful to get this experience to these guys to be able to build, because your aging veterans are not going to be there much longer. And you want these younger guys to be able to step into those roles and to be able to filter, because when you do that, you have cheaper contracts, because then you can go and get the veteran free agents that you were able to do in 2017 and be able to fill your roster, those certain ways. And I want to throw it to you, Tom. I want to ask you a question. You've seen it with your team, high draft picks, and to try to turn. And you saw it this year, their defense littered with tons of top draft picks. How do you feel about your team in terms of the 11th pick on where you'd like them to go? Would you want them to say trade up if there's a player that you absolutely love to trade up, and since you have the cap space, plus have, a lot of this young players. I know you're not sold on Daniel Jones, but it looks like they're going to give him another year. What's your feeling on that? Or do you trade down, or do you stay at 11? What's your feeling on the Giants in terms of that?
I'm almost always a fan of trading down, because unless there's like that one guy that you have dead set that you're set on, that you think he's going to come in day one and be that big of an impact, I trade down unless there's that guy. If we stay at 11, I like Kwity Paye out of Michigan. I also like a few of the receivers there. I don't think Chase or Smith will be there. Waddle could be a fit at 11. But I think the biggest thing with our defense this year has been the free agent signings by Gettleman with James Bradbury. He's came in and he's honestly looked like an elite corner. And then also Blake Martinez in the middle has been great for us.
Yeah, and that's big for them, because I could see, and even Jabril Peppers, they're using him in a way that Cleveland wasn't able or didn't use him to his strengths, I guess. But he's shown some promise and shown something. He's still a young player, but they have a good defensive line. Their linebacking, the pass rush is one big thing that they need to improve upon. We've talked about that, and the receiver position. I know you have Ingram, but he's up and down in terms of the production, the injuries too. But you have Slayton, and Shepard's been injured too. So that's the tough part. Getting Saquon Barkley back is going to help them, tremendously, because he's an absolute, special talent. But, Gallman stepping up last year helped them as well. But, for the Giants, I see them basically, if you're at 11, them going basically best player available. And, for them, their defense is very good, and they're going to have to re-sign a couple players, of course. But, as an Eagles fan, looking at them, knowing that they're taking that step up, with a lot of the teams in the division, the Eagles are at that point. They're at that. I don't want to say they're at the bottom point, but unfortunately, it's where they finished this year. And if they can't hit on these drafts, this is an absolute crucial draft. And to segue into next weekend, and this upcoming week with the Senior Bowl coming up, Eagles, they had the position to coach in that, but of course with the Doug Peterson and everything, you can't do it if you have a new staff. Which, so they weren't able to do that, but that's going to be huge. And the Eagles always seem to like to pick a player or two from the Senior Bowl. Seems like every draft they do that. They go and they'll get someone for this year. So it's very big to watch. And Chris, who would you say, if you want to name a couple of players that you're absolutely looking forward to seeing on the field, whether the practice field or during the game during this week?
I mean, I'm really interested to see how Mac Jones does. Obviously, I do not want him. I'm not interested in the quarterback. I just love watching. Yeah,
no quarterback
exactly.
factory.
I just love watching these prospects. And Mac Jones is coming off a national championship. I'm just interested to see him down there. But man, Najee Harris, I can't wait to watch that dude run through people. I've been watching him since he was in high school. I just remember seeing a random YouTube clip, and I'm like, there's no way this guy just committed to Alabama, because this is when Derrick Henry was just leaving, and I was like, this guy's 6'3", and he's literally bigger, faster, stronger than Derrick Henry, and he broke all of his records at Bama. I can't wait to see him. I mean, yeah, I'm just imagining Atlanta almost wants to move back so they can get him in the first round. But another guy, I mean, Kadarius Toney, he's one of my favorite wide receiver prospects. He's been rumored probably a second-round pick, but I talked to some scouts and they said he'll probably leak into the first because Olave's opting out. I mean, not opting out, he's going back to Ohio State. I mean, man, the Reese Senior Bowl is loaded. I just got done interviewing DJ Daniel. I'm telling you, this kid is one of the most clean-cut, legit prospects. If people listening don't know who he is, he's a cornerback from Georgia. He ended up hurting his ankle in July, and it kind of set him back. And the whole COVID situation, it was tough for him to get checked out and get everything sorted out. But man, he started 13 out of 14 games last year. He held Jamar Chase to 3 catches, 41 yards, man to man, the whole game. And I interviewed him. It'll be on YouTube later, and it was crazy. This dude, you would have thought it was a combine interview. He was talking about his experience, his military experience when he was at a junior college. He's at Georgia Military Academy before he went to Georgia, and he just talked about how structured he is. He cooks for himself, super organized. And then he just talked about his technique. And the funny thing is his role model is Darius Slay. So he was like, I hope I go to the Eagles. He goes, it would be a dream to be behind him. But man, if you watch his tape against him, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, he slapped the ball out of Chase Claypool's hands with no time left to end the game against Notre Dame. I mean, watch DJ Daniel. He's going to be awesome. He's so excited to play starting Monday in the Senior Bowl. I'm telling you, Matt Miller had him as a second-round pick before he got hurt. I think he might fall to the third or fourth round. He's going to be a steal. I mean, if you just watch his tape, this kid's amazing. He's clean cut. He literally does not go out. All he does is cook and watch film. He's the perfect NFL prospect. It's unreal how great this guy is. I think you'll really like watching him at the Senior Bowl this week.
And this is where I'm really fascinated to see what kind of defensive coordinator the Eagles are going to pick, and what basically what kind of style that they're going to go, because we don't know. And that's the one thing. It's my feeling on it is I want players like that. I'm not saying the players that were on the defense weren't hard-nosed and that fear, a team that I watch, and I want a defense like that, because growing up in the early 2000s, the Jim Johnson defenses, the fearful defense. It was just so fun to watch, to know, and just your eyes were peeled to watch these defenses. Is the Baltimore Ravens. I love how no matter who it is, and they can let players go, and then they draft players, and just the mentality. And I absolutely love watching that, and it's just fun to watch. I want a defense like that, and players, like that fit that mold. And I like this draft this year because I feel like the cornerback class and the safety class have a lot of almost like no nonsense type of prospects that, are going to hit you in the mouth. And, one guy I like, he's a small school guy that I'm absolutely ecstatic that he got a Senior Bowl invite, is Robert Rochelle from Central Arkansas. There's a lot of, talk about him. So I'm really excited to see him go up on one. I absolutely love the one-on-one drills to be able to watch during the Senior Bowl. And, defensive and offensive line are one of my favorite, but the corners and going up against the wide receivers. Now, a lot of people do is just watch the one-on-ones and just, he beat him. But you have to just watch the technique and the way their hips move, and how, a lot of people talk about the hip fluidity and being able to turn and being able to get off and being able to, you're just watching it. Same thing with the receivers, seeing how they get in and out of their breaks. But I absolutely, I can't wait to watch him play. And another guy that I was happy to see him get an invite, Minnesota defensive back Benjamin St. Justy. I want to see him as well. But these All-Star games and this draft process and, getting this point, I absolutely love it because I like to just dig even deeper into the film of certain players and to watch more that I didn't get to see during the season, especially in a COVID season this year. It was a lot tougher. So you got to go back sometimes on some of these players to 2019. But those are a couple of players that I'm, looking forward to. And, we'll break it down. Tommy and I definitely break it down next week with it going into that. But is there any off the top of your head, Tommy, or anybody that you're liking you want to take a look at?
Since you were talking a little bit about those aggressive defensive players, one guy that comes to mind is Chaz Surratt out of North Carolina. He's just such a great blitzer for an interior linebacker, and he's still kind of new to the position because he came into North Carolina actually as a quarterback, but he's been making a pretty good transition to inside linebacker, and I think it'll be a big week for him, getting to see how much he knows mentally at the position as an interior linebacker and seeing what he's able to bring in a different kind of environment and a different defense.
Yeah, and the other question that, I have for you, Chris, is, with this Sirianni hire, and the one thing that I'm, pretty happy and excited about is what he likes to do is he likes to get his players in space. He likes to use them. And the one other thing is he's such a good like you said, the development of Keenan Allen when he was a receivers coach. And another guy is Zach Pascal. I loved him coming out of Old Dominion as a guy that, needed some time, needed some coaching. But the one thing when you watch the Colts, all their receivers are such willing blockers. They'll get downfield. If they're not involved in the play, they're going to hit someone in open holes for their guys. And the thing is with Miles Sanders, it's going to benefit him because the Colts ran the ball a lot, but they used a couple of running backs, which gives me hope that they're going to be able to I would absolutely love for them to get a guy like Najee Harris. That would absolutely be unbelievable to be able to use, a thunder and lightning type of, rotation. But how you on that hire in terms of the offense, like you could talk about the running backs because I know you like Najee Harris, but what would you say is the most, for fans that don't know about Sirianni and how he runs an offense, what would you think? What would you say to them, to get them a little excited about how he runs an offense?
Okay, so like you and I, man, like John, like we talked the entire last 2 weeks about Doug Pearson leaving, like who did we think was gonna come in, and like we both love Joe Brady, both absolutely did not want Josh McDaniels here. Yeah. I was like, I don't want that here. I think it would have absolutely destroyed the locker room, and it would have been really bad. Sirianni, obviously, like people were like, oh, people didn't know who he was until this week. It's like, no, people knew who he was. It's just like he and people are like, oh, like we're just getting like another Doug Peterson, but not even Doug Peterson. It's like, no, it's not the same. Like if you really look at his body of work, it speaks for itself. I mean, this is a guy that has proven he can develop talent. All of the quarterbacks that he worked with, Andrew Luck, Jacoby Brissett, and Phillip Rivers, all had improvements in the majority of categories. Like Phillip Rivers had a better completion percentage under Sirianni, and it's like that's a year before he's going to retire. I mean, this thing with Sirianni is Jonathan Taylor was an elite prospect coming out of college, but there were some things that he needed to find. Like there's a reason why like a lot of running backs aren't going in the first anymore. A lot of it is the owners are kind of like pushing back against running backs and trying to make sure that they don't go in the first. But like Jonathan Taylor is like an absolute monster. It took time though. I mean, Jonathan Taylor wasn't the guy right away. Naheem Hines was still in the show to start the year, and Marlon Mack was in there, and that's really what the Eagles need to get back to. That's why the Eagles won the Super Bowl. They had LeGarrette Blount, they had Corey Clement, they had Darren Sproles, and then they added Jay Ajayi for the Super Bowl run. I mean, I think that's what killed us. I mean, Corey Clement, thank you for 2017, but like, dude, he's like a shell of himself since then. Miles, who I like a lot. I mean, health has been an issue and fumbling's been an issue. But that being said, like Miles can do something that's not everyone can do. Miles scores like 60+ yard touchdowns, like random, like it's crazy. Like it'll be the best defense in the league, and it'll be like 3 yards a carry, 4 yards a carry, and then it's like a 70-yarder. The thing with Sirianni is like people are like, oh, like they're only getting him to be a yes man. It's only for Wentz. It's like it's not true. All these guys are going to be so much more successful under Sirianni. I mean, I love Doug Peterson, but like, dude, since 2017, like he's really been a shell of himself with play calling, and like it's like it just seemed like he just like lost that like passion for like going the extra, not even going the extra, like just thinking outside the box. I mean, they showed how lazy the plays were. It was like, dude, you're watching the game, and it's like a 3rd and 1, and we're running like 4 verticals. Like it literally looked like someone's like drunk uncle was trying to play Madden and was like asking Madden every single time and was just, oh, like, well, throw a Hail Mary. Like it was just no creativity. I mean, like Zach Ertz had a huge dip in progress. It's like Dallas Goedert didn't even look good this year. And then they showed there were out of the entire season, Jalen Reagor only had 11 designed plays to put him in space. Like that's insane. And then there was games where Miles Sanders would have like 2 second-half carries. I mean, like you really couldn't make it up. And it's one of those things. Like I think Sirianni's gonna develop these guys a lot better. I think he's gonna put them in a position to succeed. And obviously you want to add guys like Jamar Chase and such, but I really think with what we have, he'll help them get to peak performance. And then you add guys on that fit the culture and everything. And really, it's really going to lay the foundation for the next couple of years.
So what about guys, from the Colts who are free agents? I know you mentioned, I saw you tweeted out about T.Y. Hilton, but what about guys like there's 2 other guys that I mentioned, a guy like Marlon Mack or a guy like Malik Hooker. I think Anthony Walker may be a little too expensive. But guys that come from there, a couple lower level, because that's what the Eagles are going to have to do. They're going to have to get a couple lower level free agents and then build through the draft. But how do you think about those guys?
Yeah, the whole T.Y. Hilton comment, it didn't come from me thinking like, go get T.Y. Hilton. He's not the best or like most efficient guy for the current cap situation. But I do know T.Y. Hilton's like I know people from his party, and supposedly 2 years ago the Eagles had a trade for T.Y. Hilton, and instead of getting Golden Tate, and it fell through. But T.Y. Hilton like loves Philadelphia. Like he like obviously like Indy's like a small market, but like for some reason like he's heard good things from Frank Reich about Philadelphia, and he wants to play here. And I know that what's up, Will? They talked about playing in about retiring as a Colt, but for some reason my friend told me like Ty has started out there, like he would play for Philadelphia, and this is before we got Sirianni, and then I think he would probably come here for a really cost efficient contract. And like is he what we need? I don't really think so. I'd rather roll with, like, dude, there's a lot of free agents. I mean, obviously we're talking about cost efficient because the cap, but I really think that the cap's gonna figure itself out. My one friend told me that there was like a league meeting a week or so ago. People thought the cap was gonna dip to 175. There's a rumor it's not, and 198 is actually going to be the number, and that's like insane. That's really going to save us like 23 mil. So the Eagles are going to be, I think that they're going to be in a lot better shape than people think. And I think it's because like the owners are going to be like, listen, like we didn't know COVID was going to happen. Like we thought it was supposed to go up to 240. Then they're going to move it to 175. So like 198 would be a really big sweet spot. So if that ends up happening, which I've been hearing, that'd be awesome. But guys like you were talking about, I mean, we're talking about what else they're going to add. I think Jonathan Gannon, the DB cornerbacks coach from the Colts, would be awesome. Defensive coordinator here.
Look what he
14
did with
years
Rose.
experience. Dude, and he's been in the league for 14 years as a coach. I mean, he's been with St. Louis, Tennessee, Miami, Minnesota, and then the Colts. I think he'd be perfect. And then maybe he brings over a guy like Malik Hooker, maybe PJ, like we were talking about guys. It usually happens. I mean, dude, the ultimate example of that is Matt Rule. I mean, it's like literally Temple U, Temple U over there, and Baylor guys. I mean, that's what they do, man. Like when people like the coaches, they're gonna follow. I mean, we'll see what happens.
Chip Kelly with all the Oregon players. We remember that.
Yeah, never mind.
But
they can say.
Yeah. No, but no. If the whole cap situation, you have to see. You have to wait and see what it is. Everyone freaked out and panicked, and of course, there's also the Carson Wentz situation. So if Carson Wentz is going to be your guy, what they're going to do in terms of his contract, are they going to, if they think there's something they can fix him, I don't really think a restructure should be in their head right now, just because if it doesn't work out and you restructure him, then you're even more screwed in terms of the money wise. But there's other things that they can do. They can maneuver money and do all that good stuff. The cap goes up. It's good for your Giants because then they'll be able to sign Leonard Williams and Lawrence, and they'll be able to get their guys under contract that they need to get under contract. But, it's just to me with, looking at this hire, and the one thing I want to ask you, Tom, is kind of being an outsider. Why? I know you watched both the Eagles games against the Giants. I'm not sure what other Eagles games you watched, but those two games specifically, watching the Eagles offense, what's your take, being an outside, not a fan of them, just being an actual a Giants, opposition fan. What was your take on watching the Eagles offense?
My biggest takeaway, I think the best thing about adding Sirianni is that hopefully he doesn't abandon the run game so often the way Doug Peterson did. Like I'm a big fan of having running back by committee, establishing the run, working off play action, and kind of working your offense that way. So I kind of like the idea of bringing Marlon Mack over. You could probably get him at a discount since he's coming off an injury. He was pretty productive in their offense. And then maybe even adding a running back, a power guy, kind of like I wouldn't invest in Najee Harris early on. That's a little too rich for me going late in the first, early second. But I would kind of look to kind of a similar version, Ramondre Stevenson. You could probably get him right around 3 or 4. He's a bruiser back at probably weighs about 240 for Oklahoma. I think he'd be a good fit as a power back for you guys.
Yeah, and it's something that they're going to have to look to. It's going to change. Now, the other question is the whole Zach Ertz. I know a lot of people put out there that they didn't play as much. There's so many people put different things on Twitter. I like to just look for myself and look for the percentage of snaps itself. But I know Jack Doyle, Trey Burton, and Mo Alley Cox, they all had, I think Burton was maybe Mo Alley Cox had the lowest, but they were all upwards of almost 40% snap percentage. And the Eagles were a little higher with Ertz and Goddard. They were around the 53, 54 range. But I understand the whole Zach Ertz and the contract and everything there. I know a lot of people think it's more than likely he's gone. To me, I'm kind of, now that there's a new coach in here and the way he uses offense and the way He moves people around and what he does. Yeah, there's a slight possibility Ertz doesn't go, but I'm on the like the 50-50 now. Before I was like 80-20, he was gone, but now I'm kind of 50-50. Getting a little insight from you, Chris. How are you feeling with the whole Zach Ertz thing?
I mean, from what I heard, Zach Ertz was literally a goner, and then he got hurt, and then it saved him at the trade deadline, and then it was probably like 90 going, 10 staying, and then Sirianni came, and then now it's probably like 60-40 going, like 40 staying. I mean, Sirianni and this type of offense, you need tight ends, but it doesn't help that Zach's going to be looking for a payday. How much of a payday? I don't know how it's going to be anymore. I mean, this year was pretty terrible. And I mean, it's going to be weird because, I mean, George Kittle, Hooper, and Kelsey got paid. But then Kittle went down. So then, like, it doesn't help Zach. It's like, listen, like, they just paid this guy and he got hurt and, like, he's not contributing to the team. So I do honestly think Ertz will be on the team because of Sirianni, because he's already on contract. If it's okay with him, I think if it's okay with him, he'll stay because he's under contract, one more year. But it's one of those things where, like, there's so much uncertainty with this team. I mean, a week ago we didn't know. No, 3 days ago we didn't know if Wentz was going to be on the team. Sirianni got hired. Now it's like, oh, okay, Wentz will probably stay. This seems like they're going to try to help Wentz and not cut into the money that we owe him. And that's like, oh, Wentz is staying, Ertz is staying. And now it's like, who's going to be the offensive coordinator? Who's going to be the defensive coordinator? Like, is someone going to burn Novacare down? I mean, like, dude, it's really crazy in this city right now. So just hoping for the best. With a team that doesn't really have many leaders right now, you kind of want to keep Zach Ertz, because he's kind of the voice of reason right now, and he's one of the few guys left from the Super Bowl team, and he's the Eagles' lifer right now, and you really don't want to send him packing.
No, you don't. And I love Zach Ertz. Don't get me wrong; he's one of my favorite players. But another guy who got paid this offseason, Austin Hooper, 46 catches, 435 yards, and 4 touchdowns. To me, he's making what, 11 million plus a year or so, or 10, 11 million a year. That's not $10-11 million money. Now, I know they got a lot of other weapons on that offense, but, there's another person that kind of says, hey, he got huge payday. His numbers weren't the greatest. But, for me, there were 4, 11, and 1. They're not going to be 12 and 4. They're not going to be 11 and 5. They're not going to make a huge jump. You never know. They may, 8 and 8, 9 and 7. We don't know because we don't know who's going to be on the team. We don't know who's on the staff. We don't know what free agency looks like, trades look like. We don't know any of that yet. So you can't really judge. You don't know what the schedule looks like. So you don't know any of that. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things where it's like, people are like, oh, they're setting this guy up to fail. It's like, yes and no. I mean, you have to limit expectations. And this is what I was saying. Like, I want to win more than anything else, but, like, I want, like, sustained success. I don't want, like, Chip Kelly, like, you have, like, you go to the playoffs and then you realize you literally dumped all your talent and the good part of the culture away. I mean, the thing with Sirianni that I'm hoping is we have been terrible drafting. We've been terrible at developing players. And somehow through it all, we won a Super Bowl and we went to the playoffs 3 straight years. So that was why I was optimistic. Like, if they can literally draft a little bit better and develop a little bit better and not have the world's worst like doctors and staff and telling guys to, like, ice their head when they have a concussion, like, this might turn around. Now we have a clean slate. I mean, I'm just hoping, man. Like, with Sirianni, it's like, I think he's going to be like complete 180 with developing guys. I think he's going to put guys in a position to succeed. So it really comes down to, like, what are your expectations? My expectations are that we're going to develop more players. We're going to finally have an identity on offense because we haven't. I mean, I think that's what killed us. Like, right after, like, people don't realize, like, so many teams run the same off-base offense as us, but they are actually running an offense. Our offense had zero identity. I mean, dude, people the whole game are like, why isn't Carson Wentz rolling out? Like, why is Miles Sanders not getting the ball? Why are we running a Hail Mary on 3rd and 1? It's like, it made no sense. Like, there were no rub routes. There was no screens. There, like, dude, we were running like the most, but dude, the moment I knew Doug Peterson was just like completely mentally checked out is when Carson Wentz sucked in the first half against Baltimore and then tore up, led them to being within 2 points. And for the 2-point conversion, we ran a read option sprint left. Boston Scott runs in the Wentz, and then he gets sacked. And I was like, there was no better play in the entire playbook. Like, and not even that. Like, you could have put Hurt. Like, you draft Hurts and say, oh, we're gonna have Taysom Hill on steroids. You can't even use him in the red zone for a 2. It was just so bizarre, dude. Like, it took until week 17 we saw John Hightower try to throw the ball. I was like, oh my god, Doug does not want to be the coach here anymore. Like, John Hightower just threw the ball. It was like bizarre.
Yeah, and that was a huge thing. Like, because one of our co-hosts on our weekly show, Phil, he always said this team, there's no identity, and 100% right. The team had no identity. You didn't know what they were going to do, and it was just, we kept saying it's just like a nonchalant type of offense. We could predict what they were going to run by just watching and looking at it, and it was just so boring. And I was for bringing Doug back. I was, until it leaked. If it's true that he wanted to bring everybody back and just run it back and make Preston Taylor, all that, I was just, all right, I think I'm done. I think I can't. You can't just do the same thing and expect to have different. It's just not working. If something doesn't work, you need to change. It's just it's the way it is, and it's, to me, it's. I love the Sirianni hire just because, watching what the Colts do and how they use their players and how they use them to their strengths. They don't try and another thing that we've tried to talk about, and it was the same thing when on the defensive side of the ball for the Eagles. You're taking a square peg and trying to jam it into a round hole. It's not what they do best. Try to figure out what your players do best, what their strengths are. Jalen Reagor in space, certain things. And a lot of people say, oh, Jalen Reagor can't get open. He's not able to, break. There was plenty of times where he was open, and whether it was Hurts or whether it was Carson, that missed him. There was plenty of times that he was able to get open. And it's just people being lazy and not actually going and looking at the film and actually taking the opportunity to actually focus their eyes on something else than just thinking what everyone else is saying and not really looking into it. But there's players on this team, John Hightower, when Hurts came in, they stopped running deep routes. They stopped doing anything with him. I know he was having some trouble and everything, but he was able to get open. It's just he was having some troubles, which makes me very happy to see a coach like Sirianni who does so well with receivers, a guy like Hightower, a guy like Quez Watkins, a guy like Jalen Reagor, the whole Fulgham thing. We'll see where that goes. I know there was, talk about him with his practice habits weren't the best, everything like that. Okay. But let's see what happens. And that's what I'm looking forward to when it comes to, this offseason and who they bring in as coaches and what the staff looks like, because nobody knew who Andy Reid was when he was hired in 1999. And he didn't interview with anybody else. He wasn't a play caller. And the biggest thing he did was he brought in one hell of a staff. Jim Johnson, and there was guys like Spags and Harbaugh and, Leslie Frazier, and all these talented offensive and defensive minds that he brought in that would later go on and be head coaches, Sean McDermott, all those guys. And it's a testament of, yes, you hire the head coach, but it's about the staff that you bring in. If you don't bring in a strong staff, it doesn't matter who your head coach is. You need somebody behind them. And that's one thing I'm really looking forward to when it comes to that and, bringing in the staff. But going to go a little bit with the wrap things up here. It's Championship Sunday. I want to get each of your guys' predictions on the two games. Beginning of the season, preseason, I will throw it out there. I like to keep mentioning it until it winds up not being no longer and I can't say anything anymore. I picked the Buffalo Bills to win the Super Bowl preseason. I have the video. I got laughed at. I got mocked. I made a bet with my co-host Phil, which he then agreed because, we were live and he couldn't say no. The Bills win the Super Bowl. He goes through a table, Bills Mafia style. So it's going to be some fun stuff. So that's why I'm going the Bills. They're going to win because I want to keep seeing them win. But I have a feeling with the NFC, I picked Tampa. I don't know how much I really like that. To me, it's a little bit of just going with Tampa with the cold weather. I don't know. But what are your guys feeling? Tom, I'll let you start. What are your feelings on the two games this Sunday?
I'm hoping to see the Bills and the Packers make it, to be honest. I'm rooting for Josh Allen. I'm a big fan of him, and we got to see Mahomes win one already. I'd rather see Josh Allen win one, to be honest. I feel like it's kind of like the new school quarterbacks versus the old school quarterbacks in the AFC versus the NFC.
Yeah, for this weekend, I think the Bills are going to win, man. I mean, before the season started, I was like, I think the Bills are going to go to the Super Bowl. And then I saw the opt-outs on the defensive side and the offensive side. I was like, I still think they can make it to the AFC championship. And then, like, knowing that they had Diggs, I was like, dude, like, they might do something. Like, if Josh Allen can figure it out, and he did. I mean, Josh Allen's an MVP candidate. I'm probably going to go Bills. And the big thing is, like, everyone's like, oh, well, like, Mahomes is playing. He passed protocol. I'm not worried about his head. I think that they just had to do that as a formality because I don't think he ever had a concussion. I think he literally, like, what's it called? The one nerve in your neck.
Yeah.
I think that's what happened. I think Mac Wilson hit him on the nerve. Dude got knocked out. I've seen that happen with my teammates before. Like, it's not a concussion. Like, you literally just get knocked out because, like, if you pinch that nerve, you're going to get knocked out. It was a formality. I mean, the dude's out of a concussion protocol, but, dude, his foot is messed up. Like, that whole game when he was playing, it looked bad. And, like, he was missing throws before he ended up – I think that's kind of why he got hurt because he couldn't move around. And, dude, McDermott is a genius. Like, he's going to know how to deal with that. Like, he's like, sorry, Pat, I like you, but, like, you might have to get carried out of the stadium because, like, he wants to see Chad Henne try to beat him. And then on the other side, I mean, weather is going to be huge. Not for Tom Brady because Brady played New England, and he'll be ready for whatever happens in Lambeau. But I don't think that, like, the weather really, like, the snow really affects the over/under because people still score in the snow. But I mean, Antonio Brown's not playing, but Tom still has his weapons. It's tough because Tampa Bay blew out Green Bay, but Green Bay is different. I think it's going to be probably like a 30-27 game. This is tough because, like, I love Aaron Rodgers right now. I have a feeling, though, man, I really think that Tampa Bay is going to pull it out, but I really can go either way, man. Like, I could see, like, a field goal on one side, a field goal on the other side, 30-27. But, like, Rodgers Ndamukong Suh got in his head when they played. Yeah. Like, Rodgers literally shut down. It's going to be interesting. I mean, Fournette and Ronald Jones, they're the complete X factor because Green Bay is not good against the run. So if Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette can establish the run and keep Rodgers off the field, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, and I'm excited. Two great games, and like I said, I want to thank all the people who support us. Last Out Media, you can follow them at Last Out Media. Athletes Hub, you can follow them at Athletes Hub. And Heat Ratio Sports at Heat Ratio Sports. We want to thank all of them. I want to thank you, Chris, for joining us. You can follow Chris at Malee_Chris_24. He's got great content on Twitter. Fourth and John as well. It's absolutely great. All the stuff you put with the draft and everything like that, Eagle stuff, the stats, everything you shoot out there. It's facts. So you put it out there, which is great. But you can follow myself at JohnnyU9322. You can follow Tom at TBarnett91. But like I said, Absolutely. Thank you, Chris, for joining us. Hope to do it soon. Maybe we'll do a group mock draft. We'll do a pick by pick mock draft, maybe after Super Bowl or something, but we'll definitely get that set up and, talk some more draft with you.
Absolutely, man. My pleasure. I love what you guys do here, and I really appreciate you guys having me on. Anytime, man. Seriously, just let me know.
Absolutely. And I'm just going to play a ending video, and then, but to everyone, thanks for commenting. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for watching. We absolutely appreciate all of you. And if you have anything, you always check out AATBirds.com, AATBirds.com/shop. We have a new design up. The Good Feather, Nick Sirianni put a little t-shirt up. That's all up there. So check it out. Check all the merchandise out. We appreciate it.